Hello and welcome to Behave, the podcast with your host, Dr. Tamsin Astor, Chief Habit Scientist, international speaker, and author. And I'm super excited today to have my friend Lindsey here, who has interviewed me for her podcast. So we're just returning the favor here. And we had such a good chat. I thought we've chatted a little bit offline too. I was like, let's get this one down for my podcast too. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So good to see you.
It's lovely to be here with you. So tell me, give me a little description of who you are and what you do so that our listeners can get a flavor of who you are.
Okay, I will try to be as brief as possible with this. But, my name is Lindsey House. I'm a dietitian. I'm a personal trainer turned accountability coach. And I'm going to give you a quick little background with that because I think it'll make sense for the rest of the interview. Straight out of college and my internship as a dietitian, I ended up working at a hospital, a fitness club, and I got a maternity leave coverage at a surgical weight loss center. And I'm telling you this because I had the gamut, right? Like living in fitness centers, living at the hospital. And the one thing that it has shown me is that everybody has their own journey and everybody comes in with their own, their own barriers, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the next person. And I just felt like really seeing that through all these different settings that surgical weight loss can work really well for one person, like take them from 15 medications to one.
Right.
You can take somebody else who uses a personal trainer and a nutritionist at a fitness club, and that worked really well for them. But there's no single journey that works for everybody. And then the other thing with that was they all come in with their own barriers, but they do look kind of similar. And we'll probably talk about this with habits and whatnot, but like time, energy, and injury were the three big things that I feel like I see all the time
Yes,
with
it's
my
so
clients.
interesting, that concept of time, because we've all got the same 24 hours in the day, and it's amazing
Right.
how much some people get into it. It can get done in their 24 hours in comparison to others. And I feel like, the generation that we live in now, we like worship at the altar of busy and stress and overwhelm and overload. And I didn't have enough time. And how did it? And it's almost like, we're all still going out there and, working out and having relationships and having kids and getting married and falling apart and doing our things, but somehow it feels like we have so much more on our plate these days. And this concept of like total time overwhelm is something that I see with my clients all the time too.
I can believe that. Yes.
Yeah. So tell me
And
a
you're
little bit
probably
about like what you do with people when they come to you and they're like, I just don't have time to be fit, to exercise, to like take care of myself, to eat the right food. Like,
and that is how people come in. That overwhelmed feeling. And I always say, my clients say, I know what to do. I just need to do it. And so that kind of falls into that time thing too. Some people are going to have the visual at this and then our podcast listeners won't. But if you can picture in somebody's head, all their to-dos floating around, and what I do with my clients is start to pull them all down and put them on paper. And then we organize their to-dos and figure out their flow for the day and their flow for the workouts and their flow for their family. So it really becomes more life coaching. And that's kind of back to like the accountability coach part is I do feel like my people know what to do. They just need to do it. So
they just need to be kind of kicked into shape. And I think also, and I feel this as a mom, and I know that myself, and that's often where I hire people to support me. But it's also just having somebody tell you what to do. It's one of the interesting things, right? Like I've taught yoga for over a decade, and I've never really established a home practice, because for me, what's really relaxing about taking yoga is being in the energy of a whole lot of other people doing it, but somebody telling me what to do. I mean, that for me is like the relaxing thing, is just being told, lift your right leg, step it forward, rather than going, should I do this or this or this? And it's like we make so many decisions every day. Having somebody go, do this now, is like, oh, yay, thanks. Right?
Yes. See, I feel like I get that. My big thing is permission. And I noticed it a lot with kids too, like permission for my trainer to tell me, like, you have to work out today or show up at this time. And then it's like, because it was on the calendar and because somebody gave me permission to do it,
Right.
now I'm allowed to do it, which is really weird.
Yes,
But
that's another different
yeah.
energy around it. That's absolutely true. Yeah, no, it is. It's a fascinating thing. So talk to me about the accountability, because I should imagine that it very much varies for different people. So, I have an Apple Watch, which I got during the pandemic because I realized I was sitting on my butt all the time. Like my social life was through Zoom, my business was through Zoom, everything was through Zoom, right? And so
Yeah.
I got an Apple Watch, and it was going I set limits for like 30 minutes of exercise a day, that I had to press into it and like register 550 calories a day. And I was telling my mom, I was like, I love it because it'll be even go, Tamsin, you had a great week. Don't forget this week to, and my mom was like, if I had a watch that said that to me, I'd take it off and stamp it.
And throw
Right. So
it.
like that kind of, whereas I'm like, oh, I need to do more. I'm more like, I get sort of excited about it. Whereas she was just like,
Yeah.
that would not work for me. So how do you help people figure out what accountability looks like for them?
Yeah, and I love that question. I feel like you just gave a really great example. It goes back to everybody needs their own thing, has
Mm,
their own needs. And you get this too with coaching. The beautiful part is we can pull out what that looks like for you, for your mom, and once you set your own goals and you care about your goals, my accountability piece with that comes in the check-ins, like the
mhm,
weekly check-ins, or I have some texting options, or I have a membership where
mhm.
my members can show up to our group every day and say, these were my goals and this is what I accomplished. And
Right.
just knowing that somebody else out there cares,
Yeah.
knowing that somebody's going to ask you about it makes a huge difference.
Right, and you're also speaking to that, and I think that's a really key part of this as well as being in community. And I think one of the great things about the world we live in now is that our communities don't have to literally be a geographical community, right? Because I think that one of the things that I noticed, when I was married and I tried to go down the kind of more vegan, plant-based diet, my ex-husband was a hardcore carnivore, and it made it really tough because and then we had 3 kids that were all in various stages of pickiness and like, I don't want my carrots touching my pasta kind of stages, right? So I felt
Right.
like I was taking on this huge extra mammoth task. And I realized the only way I was going to get through it was by being really stringent about meal planning. So I didn't just fall into like eating the pizza with the kids or, eating half of his steak if he wasn't looking or whatever, you know what I mean? And I
Yes.
feel like that's difficult too, is like navigating the communities and finding people. So how do you, Lindsay, build community? Because I feel like that's a really big part of what you do.
Yes, and you draw in people who mesh with you, and I feel like I do that as well through Facebook Lives, through podcasts. I love when my clients can meet me way before we ever interact in person because they've already like understand what their needs are out of
Mhm,
me or
mhm,
even out of themselves to some extent. So
mhm.
really, as much as I'm not a social media person, I feel like it is a great avenue to get clients. And then just word of mouth, because man, if you know that something's working for you and you're like, I wish my mom had this, or I wish my
Right.
daughter had this, that's my building blocks.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so when somebody comes to you, what's the process that you lead them through? So what when somebody leaves you, like what do you hope that they have like really embodied and taken on in their journey with you, Lindsay?
So out of like a first session, are you
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah, and
referring
like
to?
what so they might come to you going, I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to commit to exercising 3 times a week, and I'd like to figure out a diet that works for me. Say, I mean something like that, right? Like what do they come with and what do you hope they like graduate or whatever or like move on from like and you're like, "Yes, I nailed it."
Oh, I can so answer this. Yes. So I can't tell you how many people come with the weight, wanting to lose X amount on the scale.
Mhm.
And you talk about, that the telescope and the microscope view, the
Yeah.
small visions and then the big vision.
Yeah.
And so I always start with the big why with my clients. Why do you care? And I'll take like, I have a lot of actually 60-year-olds ish, like
Mhm.
grandmas
Mhm.
who come thinking they want to lose weight. And then by 10 minutes into the conversation, I'm like, wait, I'm hearing you want to be on the floor with your grandkids
Right.
playing. I'm hearing that you want to be walking with your husband and you're
It's a
sick of.
mobility or
Yes.
an exercise and like joint health and flex. Yeah.
The whole picture, right? And so that number was actually just a part of the picture. And
Yeah.
so when I get my woohoo, my yes, it's when we can like really carve out what that why looks like
Mm,
and give them different motivation than just the scale.
yeah.
Give them 5 things that they're fighting for that they can chalk up and say, I succeeded this week. That was a win.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense because I think we're so conditioned in our culture that that's the important thing. A little bit
Yeah.
like the BMI, which, we know doesn't actually is not, I mean, I remember reading this thing, I forget who it was. It was one of the big people like, Hyman or somebody saying that, there was an Olympic gymnast whose BMI was too high because she was so muscly, but she was so low in body fat that she stopped having her periods. So like
Yeah.
this concept of BMI, right, can be
It's so annoying.
completely wrong for some
Yeah.
people. Like, I mean, I know that part of it is all creating this sort of generalized, like roughly you fall into a roughly healthy or unhealthy category. But I
Yeah.
feel like we get very stuck on the visuals and the numbers rather than, and I love that you're speaking to the importance of like the bigger why. Like I want to be the kind of, I mean, that's for me, like with my clients, we talk a lot about, pleasure and what does pleasure look like for you and how are you creating pleasure in your life rather than pleasure being a reward, right? And
Yes.
for me, having a body that works is pleasure because I want to be that kind of mother and eventually that kind of grandmother that has the energy, has the joint mobility, has the strength, has the stamina to run around with my grandkids or get on bicycles with them or swim with them
Yeah.
in the sea, and not be like,
Yeah.
grandma's joints can't handle this. Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
I don't want to sit on the sidelines.
Yeah,
Don't make me
right.
sit on the sidelines.
I
Yeah.
love that. Don't make me sit on the sidelines. Yes, that should be like your your tagline. Like, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes.
So what was your journey into this? How did you like land on this as an important thing that you wanted to do to support people? It sounds like mostly women. Like, how did you land on this as an area that you thought this is something that I'm really passionate about and I really want to, support the world around?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I kind of was coming from all different types of backgrounds within my
Mhm.
profession. But what I noticed, again, back to those similar barriers of time, energy, and injury,
Mm,
um, that everybody was having the same barriers, which meant I was having the same conversation
mm,
almost with the same, like client to client. I used to have like 8 patients a day in a
mhm,
row. And
mm.
within those 8 patients, I had the same conversation at least 5 times. I was noticing that from the gym to the hospital. And I'm like, oh, I cannot do this one-on-one forever. Like
Yeah,
I'm going to burn out.
yeah.
My
Right.
enthusiasm's going to burn out.
Yeah.
And so I really left the hospital because of logistic reasons. I had kids, new season of life, blah, blah, blah. But as I left, that's when I was like, I got to write a book. I got to get all these topics
Mm,
down in different chapters so I don't lose all these 13 years of information gathering.
yeah.
And that's where the book emerged. And then after the book, I was like, I still want to reach more. And that's where the podcast came from. So I got super passionate about if all these people that I know personally care, like I know more people
More
out there
people
need to
will.
hear the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
message.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a bigger conversation that we need to be having. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then how do you have these conversations with kids too? Because I'm really aware of it because I've got 2 sons and a daughter, and, my sons just like they eat whatever they want, and they do whatever they want, and they don't really think much about it, right? Whereas
Yeah.
my daughter, she's 11, and I'm already starting to see, that awareness of, like, what I should look like, how I should, all of that sort of piece. So how like, were you trained in that, and do you talk about that too with your clients who have younger family members?
Somewhat with
Mhm.
clients all the time with my own girls.
Mm,
And I have pulled on a pediatric dietitian on my podcast because I have an 11-year-old as well.
mm.
And I was just seeing these conversations coming up and hearing all the other moms in our same circle asking the same questions. So I was like, I don't want to screw this up. Like,
Right, right.
yes. And honestly, it's about health. It's always about health. And like every conversation goes around health. And as moms, we have to love our bodies
We have to
or fake it.
model that.
We totally have to model it, fake it till you make it if you have to. But like, they're watching, their little eyeballs are watching how we view ourselves in our clothes, in a bathing suit, in our everyday, in the kitchen. Are you eating with your family? Are you doing the same habits with your family? Like if we go out for a walk or a run, it's because I need more energy today. I'm feeling a little low on energy. Nothing's about the scale.
Yeah.
Nothing's about, I have to say this really fast. Our school, as you were talking BMI, sent out this letter, and it was like, just FYI, we are doing body measurements, BMIs, weighing, and sending your child home with this letter. And I was like, what?
What are you doing?
No.
No. Yeah.
I like jumped on, called the school nurse. She was probably like, you have to calm down.
You were like,
I'm like, don't you dare.
Activist hat energy is coming out.
Like, don't you dare put that letter in my, it's like, my daughter's going to get to read it, view it, and overthink it before we ever get a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then we had the BMI talk and all of that other, but even in the same conversation with the nurse, she was like, I know my daughter still brings up that letter to this day and she's in college. I was like,
well, doesn't that tell you that this is not a good thing to do?
right? It's not okay.
Yeah.
Like they have so much I think our generations are shifting. And I think that's what you and I are both out to like,
yeah,
to do, generation change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
But,
I mean, like all the stuff, I was really, I mean, I love Jamila Jamil. I love the way she's such an activist in this space, but there's that whole thing right now about the the things that like change your face, the filters, that's the word I'm looking for, on
filters.
Snapchat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and how they give you that like Disney, like the bigger eyes and the perkier lips and this and the skin being smoothed out and the jawline being narrowed and all that shit, your tits being like, and it's just like, oh my God, like it gives you such and it was so bizarre. I had this realization. I went to a networking event. This was pre-COVID with a woman, and I realized that all of her social media posts had been filtered, right? Because I looked at her and I was like, oh, like you didn't, like your lips are not quite as rosebuddy as they always are, like, because I just realized that she like used filters the whole time, and it's so weird. I mean, that it reminds me when I was 16, I told my brother who is younger than me that I was going to buy a Wonder Bra because I was pretty sporty and flat chested, and he was like, why would you do that? When you take it off, they're going to go back to the size they are already. and I sort of feel like that we've created this bizarre world, right? Where you like what you're supposed, and this whole, and it's like, well, when I meet you in person, like, are you actually like that?
Right. Like I might disappoint.
Right.
Yes. But now you're mentioning another great thing to talk about for our kiddos is to take them through the exercise of showing them what those apps are doing, which means that's the magazines we're looking at. And by the way, I don't keep any people magazine. I keep no fitness people, anything magazines in my house. And I know that sounds extreme, but that I don't think that they need that comparison
they don't need
right
to
now.
see those images. Yeah.
But like there's an app even that you can take your finger and swipe away part of your body. So like if you are in a bikini, you can take away areas like rolls or whatever that you would want. So again, I know, I feel like with my kids, I'm like, let me show you in a picture what you can look like with your stomach hanging out, or like if you know that the picture's about to happen and
like
how you might
it in and turn. Yeah.
Yes.
I always love it when fitness people are like post two photos side by side on exactly the same day, doing the like suck the stomach in, angle the camera, and then this is what I'm like, just standing and I've got my belly's poofing out or whatever. Yeah, no, I agree. And it's interesting because I mean, I think it is fascinating because I was not when my boys were younger, I didn't really think about it, and it's only having a daughter that's kind of brought me into that awareness of like when we go out to eat, I eat the ice cream with the kids, and I mean, I love eating ice cream anyway, but like I don't go, oh, like I'm watching my figure right now, it's bikini season, I'm not going to eat the ice cream now. I'm really mindful of that, and it's so interesting that I like with my boys never really thought about it in that way or was nervous about that. Yeah.
And for anyone listening, and just because you're giving this perfect example of having different kids in the house that all have different needs, no matter what. Like if somebody would need to watch their weight and the other one doesn't, you treat all of their diets exactly the same. Each child's nourishment, the purpose of a healthy diet is for a healthy body. It doesn't mean that one kid's watching calories and the other kids are fine because their body isn't showing it that way. Like it's really important to treat them all the same.
Yeah. No, it is. Oh yeah. It's like it's such a minefield. It really is.
It is. And we're going to mess up. You know, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
Direction, not perfection.
Right. Exactly. And also just like having grace around it too, I think is a big part of it, you know, and it's also really interesting, like watching the styles of like what the kids like to wear and how that also fits into it. Like it totally cracks me up that my 11-year-old wants to buy mum jeans. I'm like, you know, rather than like skinny jeans with her butt hanging out, I'm like, bring it. I will buy you mom jeans, honey. That's totally fine. Because you don't think about your belly with mom jeans, right? Because the jeans are coming right up over the top of it. Which, you know, I remember with the skinny jeans, it was always like, you know, where is it going to fall? You know, which is like not fun. Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother fun topic of like dressing for your body, because it makes it
totally. Oh my God, this is such a juicy conversation, and I know we could keep going it, but I want to keep it contained. So one question I love to ask all of my guests is, what is one behavior that you still struggle with, even though you've had coaching and support and been working on it for years? But there's the thing that like is like maybe your nemesis, or the thing that like when the stress gets too high, you always are just like, oh, here I go again.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel like I have a couple. One that I'm going to say out loud because I think it might resonate with a lot of people is I cannot out exercise my eating habits. And I can't tell you how many times I try. I want to out exercise the wine that I want to have at night, or I want to out exercise my kid nibbles. Like I can tell every time I really get into fitness, my eating goes up a little bit. And it's because something in the back of my brain is like, it's fine. You deserve it. So that's one thing on the health and fitness end. And then something else, well, I don't know. I'm going to stop there because that's probably I really have to rein that in.
And so what do you do when that comes up?
Just call it out. Like this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have found moments of, and this is where I was going to go with the other thing. When I get really tired, call it kiddos at early ages in my life or whatnot, I can get panicky because the time's not there to exercise. Like you just can't do it. And so then what? And so if I call it out that that's not an option, then what is an option? Right. Well, moderation. It always comes back to moderation. Like I can watch my portions. I can add in more fruits and vegetables and make sure my plate's nice and balanced. Like I have to like bring myself back to this, like, what do I have control over? This is what I have control over.
Yeah. And doing the 7-minute workout app is better than doing nothing, you know, and maybe I can't do like a 90-minute workout, but like 7-minute workout app and like 5 push-ups. Yay, I did my exercise.
Yeah. And it wasn't to burn calories. It was to make sure I have a better mood with my kid when she wakes up.
Exactly. No, totally. Okay. I love that. Okay. So my second question is, what is your favorite quotation and why?
Oh, okay. I'm such a quote. Like, I know some people think they're so cliche or whatever.
That's why I asked.
I think we're like quote sisters. I'm going to tell you mine and then I have to show you something too. But this sits on my desk and it says, she began to measure herself in contentment and laughter rather than inches and pounds. And I feel like you're going to keep hearing that out of me. That was another thing. Once I saw it, I'm like, my whole passion just lies that way. I just want women to understand how beautiful and wonderful they are. And it doesn't stinking matter if that scale didn't change today.
Right. So it's like count the laughs rather than the calories or whatever.
Yes. And then this is what I was going to show you with it. I take my old candles that are all burned out and they're quote jars. So I give them to my clients. Yeah. And I thought it could be kind of fun today together if we pulled a quote out.
Let's do it.
Okay. So we'll see. All right. Failure is only the opportunity to begin again wisely. Henry Ford. And so then I'd leave my little quote out on my desk for the day. And some of them strike me and some of them I could care less about. But
Yeah, no, and I
It's
think
just,
that's I mean, I think that as an entrepreneur, you have to be comfortable with failure. Like, that's just, like, getting comfortable with failure is, like, the most important thing, because you just have to keep putting stuff out there, keep doing stuff, trying stuff, falling
yeah.
over, failing forward, trying again and again and again, and otherwise you create nothing, right? And I think
Right.
that for me is such a big part of this whole process, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yes.
Yeah. So my third and final question that I ask everybody is, if you had a theme song that
Oh
announced
no.
you when you walked into a room and everybody would be like, "Oh, it's Lindsay," what would it
Oh
be?
no. Oh, I want to give you such, I needed to prep on this one. Okay, I'll give you this because it's on the top of my head. Coming, the song "Coming Out of the Dark,"
Yeah,
this
yeah,
whole
yeah.
like that coming out of seasons of life, whether it's COVID or babies, there's
Mm.
always this moment where all of a sudden I feel like life opens up and it gets easier again.
Yeah.
And I think of that when it happens. I had a girlfriend say it once, and I was like, "Oh, I so relate." But
Yes, like
that's
spring. Yeah, if you live where I
yes,
do, like in the cold north, where it's like the ground is dead for months, and then like the daffodils and the tulips and the crocuses, and you're like, "Oh my God, life! This is the best
yes,
thing ever!"
yes. There's hope.
Yeah,
There's like,
right,
yay.
right. That
Yeah.
cycle of, yes, as something ends and something else new is born, right? There's this sense of like the possibility and the joy, right?
Yes, exactly. I
Oh,
don't think that's exactly what you were asking, but that's that's
yeah,
as
no,
creative as
I
I
don't
can
like, it's just about that energy of like when you walk into a room, like, what is it like, who am I? Like, what do I embody, Yeah.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
So
Well, now I'm
where
gonna seek out my song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You'll have to give it to me so that I can put the Spotify link in the cliff notes. So where can people find you? Where do you hang out the most, Lindsay?
Okay, so my tag is House Lifestyles on Instagram as well as Facebook. I always do Monday, and I know you do too, Facebook Lives
Mhm.
at 12 Eastern Standard Time. It's kind of my opportunity. I always look at Mondays as a reset day, as this
Mm.
day to go, who cares what happened over the weekend? Who cares what happened last week? Let's just hit the reset button together. What do we want to accomplish this week? So that's always my Mondays. And then Instagram, I'm just on there with my podcast interviews and family stuff. And then I have a website, healthaccountabilitycoach.com, all one word. And that's where all of my stuff hangs out with free resources. So like I like to do a lot of worksheets just to get I love insight building.
Is there one
So
that you'd like to offer to people, a free like PDF of something or other?
yes, and I'll give that to you. I actually, for all my clients this year, did a blank calendar with check boxes. And I know this
Mm.
sounds kind of boring, but it has every month out of this year. And it's this opportunity to put down your wins for the day. Like, I think it's
Mm.
really important to acknowledge what we're doing well each day. So I'll do anything from my water intake check mark, my workout check mark, but like I've been having trouble with my dog pooping in the house. So I'll write down like it's a no poop day. Woohoo!
Yay!
Yes, and it's so funny to go back and look at that whole month filled out.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying, and that's where like if the scale doesn't show up for you that month,
Right, you've
or
got
you
other
feel,
things.
yeah, you can look back and go, I am trying, darn it.
Right, right. No, I actually get my clients, I get them to do a ta-da list on Friday
Oh, love
afternoon.
it.
Like,
Yes.
"Ta-da! This is all the stuff I did accomplish." Like, "Yay, ta-da!"
Oh, that's amazing. I might have to
Right?
steal
Because the
it.
to-do list is like, it can get so weighty and heavy and like, I didn't do it. And our brains are designed to see where we're not doing and where we're failing as a protective mechanism, but it can sometimes make us feel like,
Yes,
right?
yes. And we're so good about pointing out what we didn't do well. And
Right,
then
exactly, exactly.
we have to say this too, and then we can wrap up. But have been on my podcast now twice. It too is called Direction, Not Perfection, and that can be found on iTunes and
Yay!
Spotify.
Awesome. Thank you for referring back. That's great. Well, thank you so much for being such a fun guest today, Lindsay. I
Thank you
really
so
appreciate
much
your
for
time.
having me.
Yay! Awesome sauce. Well, we'll see you again soon. Take
All
care.
right, sounds
Bye-bye.
good. Bye.